everyone, and welcome to our webinar today. And Happy New Year. Happy 2026. It's Debbie D. Grote here, and I saw the registration list, and I know we have lots of friends, clients, awesome people across the country, really big group for this webinar. And I just want to appreciate all of you for being here today and being back to work. And if you would do me a favor, just type in the chat box, maybe a quick hello. And if something exciting has already happened in your new year, something great you've done to get business off the ground, feel free to inspire us and share it. So again, I'm Debbie D. Grote, CEO and co-founder of Forward Coaching, and I have an awesome guest with us today, Chris Heller. Many of you have been in the business for a minute, may know Chris. I think of Chris as Heller the home seller. Many, many years ago, Chris and I met when we both worked together at a previous coaching company as we ran our businesses. I had the pleasure for a few years of working with Chris's team and got to see up close and personal how he ran that team. Chris is just an incredible entrepreneur in the real estate industry, and I think has like 1 million plus followers. So I invited him today so you would have someone new. You guys listen to me a lot. So I wanted him to talk and share thoughts about positioning your business for the 2026 surge. So, Chris, is there anything else you'd like to share about your bio and background as we get this party started?
No, I think, well, first of all, just thanks for having me and for the kind words, and always excited to share and learn. And that's what happens on, every time we do something like this. I'm not going to sit here and stare at my bio. I just, for those of you, those of you that don't know me,
35 years.
yeah, actually,
I actually have you beat by a couple, which is kind of scary, right? When you think about it, Chris.
well, I actually, so I got my real estate license 43 years ago in 1983, but didn't start selling homes, residential real estate till like 1989. So
you've
anyhow,
seen a few cycles. You and I
have seen a few cycles,
interesting cycles in markets, that's for sure. So
and we've gone through some big, we've gone through some big changes, and the market's changing, and and look at any year that we're in business, it matters, right? So 2026 matters just like 25 did, 24 and 23 and 22, right? Every year matters. We are, let's see, 2022, like we're 4 years into a market that's softened, that's gone down. The number of home sales has gone down dramatically. And 2026 is probably the first year in 4 or 5 years where we're going to see the number of home sales go up. Now, do I think it's going to be a dramatic increase? No, I don't. And could surge be a stretch? It might be. But there's every agent and every team, and every person watching this has a goal to do more this year than they did last year. And that's why it matters. And that's why it's important. Hold on one second.
And Chris, while you're moving to the next slide, just a little perspective for everyone. When Ben, my business partner, and I have had conversations with our team at Goldman Sachs, they shared with us 2 years ago that transactions in the nation would be down by 40%, and that last year, 2025, they'd be down by 50%. So even though the conditions were not the same, that's very much the same pain as the market of 2008, which some of you lived through. So if you're feeling like, I'm feeling a little beat up, I really had to grind it last year. I feel, Chris, to some degree, even though it's not going to like light it up instantly this year, it's just going to feel like a relief to notice that we're moving in a different direction in the market, right?
Absolutely. And there is, as the slide says, there is pent up demand, right? There are sellers who have wanted to move that haven't because of rate lock. There's people that haven't bought for, because of affordability issues and everything else. As we see interest rates start to creep down and some markets prices start to soften up, that has a positive impact on affordability, and that starts to unlock more activity. Um, and that's stuff as agents and teams we want to be positioned to capitalize on and take care of, or to be prepared for, so that we can do more business this year than we did last year. The I think the important thing is to understand, as more homes come on the market, it creates more opportunities. Now, I don't think anyone would argue with the fact that we want to focus on listings. And this is a market where that actually becomes easier to do. And it becomes easier to do because there's more properties, staying on the market. There's also more properties that aren't selling, which means there's more expired listings, which creates more opportunities. And those are things that we want to be thinking about. Also, our population is aging, and as people age and life events happen, again, more opportunities. So those are the things that we want to be prepared for. I got asked earlier this morning, like, when the market changes, what do we need to do? Why do some agents take advantage of some? I said, because some agents aren't aware of it. They aren't even thinking about it. They're so busy, they're running on the hamster wheel, that they're not even paying attention. And the other thing is that, and there's really two things that happen that have to happen for us to be successful when the market starts to shift. And one is how we think about things and how we react to things. Like, are we looking for the opportunities? Are we focused on, okay, where's the opportunity? Where am I going to put my time and energy? And the other is the conversations we have. Do we know the conversations we need to have with a buyer in this type of market versus a different type of market, or with a seller in this type of market versus a different type of market? Do we have those skills, or are we building those skills so that we can be effective in those conversations?
So Chris, before we go into the systems, I want to see if you remember this. And I should say, it is kind of scary to talk about things that date us, but everyone these days can figure it out. By the way, I read something once recently that if you lie about your age, you'll actually die sooner, because the stress of lying will kill you. So we're not going to lie about our age, right? But do you remember, in the market of the early 80s, when the interest rates went to 18%, and then they stayed relatively high, they came down, but I can so clearly remember the moment. It was, I think, around 85 or so. And I feel they went, if I remember correctly, like just below 9, which to us sounds high, right? But when you're coming from 18 and you come down that far, it wasn't just normal business resumed. It was like the floodgates opened because of all of that pent up demand. Now, we may not see or feel that this year to the extreme, but it just is a reminder that all of those past clients, the sphere, the leads that you met that were stuck on the fence, this may be the catalyst. This may be the time that they decide to get off the fence, which means we got to do a lot of outbounding, right, Chris? Which is something you and I did a lot of in our career.
Yeah, it's the number of conversations you have will dictate the amount of business you do. And if you're just going to wait for people to come to you, then you know you're going to be disappointed in how the year ends up. Um, so one of the things we talk about is being like operational readiness. And look, I know there's teams that can relate to this more than maybe an individual agent can, but even an individual agent, you have to make sure that you have systems and processes, because systems and processes improve your efficiency. And there's only two things you can do to do more in any given day. And one of them is not work more because there's a finite amount of time, right? We all have that, we all have the same amount of time. But if we're more efficient, and the other one is effectiveness, we'll talk about that later. But efficiency means that you do things quicker or with less effort, right? And the way you do that is you have systems and processes. It might be as simple as a checklist, but a
Mhm.
checklist for everything that you do. So a checklist for preparing for a buyer consultation or showing appointment or a listing appointment or a price reduction or like for everything. And now with AI, you can create these checklists and these processes really easily. So there's no reason not to, but we want to make sure that we have that. So as the amount of opportunities increase, either because of our activities or the market, that we're ready and able to handle them.
So,
Um,
Chris, on that thought, a line popped into my mind. It's from the book The E-Myth by Michael Gerber. A predictable process will produce a predictable result. So, guys, let me give you an example. Hey, I'm great at building relationships, so I just wing it on my listing appointment. And I get, 80% of what I go out on because I know these people. Okay, well, then why aren't you getting 95%, right? Like when you have a predictable process, it does allow you to audit and interrogate that process and say, well, if I'm getting 50%, I need to get 60. If I'm getting 80%, can I go to 90%? Otherwise, it's too random. And our friend Brendan Bouchard, who's done a lot of events, things that we've been involved in, he's a great author, speaker, trainer. Brendan said, this is not the year of random. And I think that's a great thing to remember because there's a lot of entrepreneurs here who are just gifted and they kind of fly by the seat of their pants and it got you so far. But if it's not getting you where you want to be, then we need to embrace predictable systems, CRMs, automation. I'm still shocked by how many people call us for coaching and tell me they're just working off an Excel spreadsheet.
yeah, again, it goes back to what I was saying with the, being efficient. Um, there's a reason why you can have two agents or two teams that work the same amount of hours with the same effort. One gets a lot more done, and it's because they are utilizing the tools and processes and systems and checklists. It's why we use Brivity, our CRM that we use. It helps us become more efficient, helps us do things faster. The the other thing we want, especially for our teams, and is talent. Are we growing our teams? Are we adding agents? And are we adding talented agents, or do we have systems to help them become talented? If they have the desire. And that's something that we need to focus on every day, right? That's as a team, you're looking at the number of consumers that you can help and the number of buyers and sellers that you can represent. Uh, but at the same time, you're also looking at the number of agents that you can add to your team so that they bring their books of business and can help you convert more of the leads you have. Um, you know,
You know,
the
Chris,
Go
on that
ahead.
thought about team, because I know we have many people here because I know them who are not team leaders. But when for many, many years in the business, I really thought of my team as my team of quality vendors and affiliates, right? So when we're talking about recruiting talent, that could actually be, do I need to upgrade the lender that I'm working with? Because can my lender have these high level educational conversations with my buyers? Can they help me convert these buyers? Like, who am I surrounding myself with that really is part of my team in that way? So if you're saying, well, I don't have a team, well, you do, or you should, but that can really be those quality people that operate in your world. And then I think using the tech as leverage, right? So if you can't afford to hire an admin. Well, let's make sure we're utilizing all the functions in that CRM, right? So there's a lot of steps that even if you're just a solo agent, you can assemble talent around you.
Well, I would even say that you assemble people around you. The question is, are they the most talented, or are they as talented as they could be? All right, your escrow officer, your title rep, your mortgage lender, your physical inspector, the termite inspector. Yeah, do you have the best people that are going to be participating in the consumer experience with your consumers? So yeah, that's a great point, Debbie. Um, you know, if we're on a team or you're an agent on the team, are you following the systems? Are you using the systems? Are you using the all the tools that are being provided uh, at the highest possible level? Um, Not to be a good soldier, but to be a good agent, right? To get the most out of the time that you're spending every day. And you're going to wake up and you're going to get dressed. You're going to go to work. You want to get the most results possible, and that means making sure that you're aligned with the team and doing the things that the team has created to help you succeed. Um, the lead generation, all right. My favorite topic, and usually not the favorite topic of many agents. Um,
The
what
lead,
do we?
part of getting
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I agree. Call it whatever you want, like talking to people. But we want to make sure that we are on a daily basis. That like, at the very basic level, you need to have conversations every day. Right? Without conversations, and I'm not talking about, commenting on someone's Facebook post or responding to a DM or any of those. I'm talking about an actual conversation, human to human.
I
You need to
call
be
it.
having those every day. You need to be measuring them every day, and you need to have a goal every day to know if you're making progress or not. Um, and our database. People say, "Oh, I don't have a database. I don't have this." Well, hey, look at your phone. How many contacts do you have in your phone? It's probably several hundred. And those are every one of those people, someone you can call. Now, do they all live in your area? No, they might live in another state. Um, but look at they may know someone who's buying or selling real estate that may not have an agent. You could refer them an agent. All right. They may know someone in your state. But we have no excuse not to be connecting with our sphere, and we all have one. This other thing that I'd say to this, Debbie, that I think is so important is that we're working daily to add to our sphere. Like we're working daily to add to our database so that it's growing, just like a bank account. Um, that we're depositing people in there that we can have the opportunity to work with in the future.
So, Chris, I remember something. I don't know if you even remember this that you told me years ago when I was working with your team. So, Chris had a radio show, and the team did lots of open houses, and they did, great give back community events. What Chris was really amazing at doing is capturing all of those folks and putting them in his CRM. Now, they weren't buyers or sellers, but they were nurturers. So put them in that CRM, auto plans, auto touches, invite them to other events. You told me once, Chris, that you had, and you maybe even grew it way bigger after this, but that you had at that time 20,000 in your nurture category, and that your team would have 7 to 9 listings a month that they would take because people would just call in and say, I've been getting your information forever and now I'm ready. But I think the part that we miss, we see all the other businesses, if you ordered something at Christmas, they're probably already marketing to you, right? But we forget to capture all those relationships and put them in some appropriate category, because even though they're not a buyer or seller today, with a CRM, it's easy to stay in touch, right?
It's easy to stay in touch, and you never know. Like people's plans change all the time. Um, people aren't going to buy or they aren't going to sell. Next thing you know, they're buying and selling, right? Because things happen all the time. So, it's the question is, are you going to be the one that's there the most, that's connected to them the most? So when those things happen, you're the one that's helping them do it.
Well, and
Um,
that's why conversations are important. Someone said to me yesterday, well, I text my sphere. And I said, well, that's great. And that could be a layer of your outreach. The problem when you're not actually in conversation, you're not going to hear those things. You're not going to be able to ask those questions to identify potential opportunity. And I think with a changing market, even if you haven't talked to your people for a long time, what a perfect excuse to contact them and say, I know we haven't spoken for a while. You've been on my mind. We're heading into a different phase in the market. And I just wanted to show up and answer any questions you might have. And I'm curious, what are your real estate related plans for the next couple of years? See, we think we have to show up and be their friend, or we have to be overtly salesy. But if we just get our mind around, I'm their wise advisor, if they haven't heard from me for 2 years, that's shame on us. But they probably haven't been counting the days and the minutes since you called them last, right? But you've got a great reason to call them now.
yep, 100%. Um, you know, and people say, well, I don't know who to call, right? Yeah, and all agents always want to look for someone to call other than the people they know. Right? They like to avoid the people they know, that's a whole
A lot of
crazy
change
thing in itself.
around the
Um,
do not call laws, right? It really makes sense to call the people that have opted in, and you have permission, which by the way is talk about making outbound calls. You guys all know we are not attorneys, but we are cautioning you to be aware of those do not call numbers. You can certainly knock on the door, but whether you're calling, texting, you have to be careful and, obviously be wise about that.
well, and that's why we use products like Land Voice, right? That's where we get all our expireds and our FISBOs and distressed sellers from, because those companies are uh, screening for that. That's why we use companies like Remind to be able to target people in different geographic areas. Those are great products and great companies that we leverage, so that there are no excuses of I don't know who to call or where do I get the information. Land Voice, Remind, those are two companies. Um, if we're going to focus on listings, which we all know is the thing to focus on in this market, trying to find people before they go on the market, or people if they don't have success on the market, or to the areas we want to focus on. One of the best groups to call, and often neglected group, is out of area owners, people that own real estate in your market that live somewhere else. Um, Oftentimes, those landlords don't love being a landlord, and oftentimes they may have a lot of equity in the home that would be better suited somewhere else, or being using that resource for some other benefit. So talking to those people, letting them know what's happening in the local market, and that this may be a great time to cash out or to roll into another property. So there's endless opportunities. Um,
This is always one of my favorite categories, Chris, along with expireds. And I know there's a few states here that can't call expireds. There's or in Canada. I mean, I get that, guys. You have to do what you're allowed to do, but that was one of my favorites. And the absentee out of state, especially, because while they might know an agent, odds are they weren't that in touch with a local agent. And any of us who own a property out of state, if you get a phone call and they say, hey, I'm calling about your property over on X address, right away you're like, what? Is it okay? Did it burn down? Or then the next question is, well, what's going on in the market? So I always found there was a lot less rejection in those conversations. And if they didn't want to sell, sometimes they did want to buy, right?
yeah. It's also like I look back at all the homes and investments I bought, and two of the best ones were out of area owners that I called and said, "Yeah, actually, I would consider selling." I ended up buying their properties, and it
I've
was,
a
you know,
duplex thing. Exactly.
yeah. Uh, the other, for buyers, like what are we doing to differentiate ourselves from buyers, right, in this market? And that is, what are we doing to find properties before they hit the market or properties that were on the market that are no longer on the market? Like, is that part of our process? Is that part of our value proposition so that we can help buyers more effectively and not just be, an order taker or a door opener, like a lot of agents are. Um, Making sure that we are looking at all lead sources, right? Not just the ones that are free to us where we can be calling and doing outbound stuff. But do we have the right presence on Google? Are we leveraging PPC? Are we other lead sources that that you can have a positive ROI on? And if you don't know, then talk to agents that are using those leads and see if they're having a good result with them before you just start trying a bunch of different things. Um, AI enhanced prospecting. Uh, my team uses a tool called SalesGo.ai. SalesGo is just a role play tool, right? And Brevity, we have a role play tool. Like, are you using AI to build your skills? As here's what we know. And if you have a team or if you're an individual agent, one thing we want for every agent is for them to be more confident. The best way to build confidence is preparation, and the best way to be prepared is to practice. And yeah, when you use an AI tool for practicing, you don't have to worry about whether your role play partner is going to show up or not. You don't have to worry about finding a role play partner. You don't have to worry about being embarrassed or anything else. It's just you and the tool practicing and building your skills. Um, all right, leadership and mindset. And this is one of my favorite topics. And this is just as important for an individual agent or an agent on a team or the leader of a team or anything else. Um, you know, Lead with logic, not emotion. We focus on the fundamentals, not the fear or the hype. There's so much stuff happening in our industry and the world and everything else. And if we get caught up in all that and we start to get it starts to impact our attitude or how we feel or things that we like or are angry about or fearful about, then we miss opportunities. You cannot be in fear and anger, um, in frustration and see opportunities at the same time. You just can't. Those are like filters that block opportunities from you. So it's being conscious of that and making a proactive effort to make sure that we're focused on our mindset and looking for opportunities.
What are some of the
The
best what are some of the best ways, Chris, that you work on your mindset? Like one of my things is I don't watch the news. I'll
yeah
get crib notes of what I need to know, but I don't watch the news. I don't listen to talk radio that's negative. I tune out of that because I cannot do anything. And that's just my choice. I'm not telling all of you, but it distresses me. So instead, I'd rather listen to great podcasts if I'm driving in the car, or just have quiet in the morning. I have to do that or it derails me. What do you do to protect your mindset?
yeah so similar to that, but for me it's always two things. It's always limiting or shielding the negative, right? Like whether it's negative people, whether it's negative news, whether it's like just not letting that in. But at the same time, even if we don't let that in, you can't, unless you're out in the woods, like off the grid, you can't avoid it. You can't avoid it, right? So you not only have to shield it and limit it, but at the same time, you have to infuse the positive, right? I always thought of it related to it like that there's a finite amount of space up here. And I'm going to either fill it, there's going to be filled with negative stuff or positive stuff. So I'm constantly putting in positive stuff. So hanging out or talking to people that give me energy versus the ones that take energy. What I listen to, what I watch, what I my my end of the day routine, my beginning of the day routine, all those things, the affirmations I use, all of those things are things like, and people say, "Oh, you do that?" It's like, yeah, why wouldn't you do all these things to get you prepared at the highest level? Um, I'm a big sports fan. There's for professional athletes or college athletes, that are involved in the college football playoffs right now. They're completely focused on achieving their goals, and their mindset and their focus and all the things have to be in the right place. They can't afford for that not to happen. Um, as professionals, we need to have that same mindset that we can't afford to have that. We can't afford, and I don't think any of us have too much money in the bank or own too many rental properties or, uh, you know, too many assets, right? So, are we going to really limit our results because we're not going to take the time to build a good and strong mindset?
I saw
Um,
Tom Brady on TV. I'm not such a like sports fanatic. I get bored sitting and watching, but I am a Tom Brady fan. And a lot of it because of the discipline, right? The incredible discipline, read his book and looked at his workout routine, all that stuff. Just so amazing how he could do what he's done. And they asked him something, and I was just walking through the room when my husband was watching it, and he said, "No, I'm ready. I could go right back out there on that field right now, and I could play and I could win." And the reason was because he was still running his daily routine, right? The routine that got him there. And I think it's the part we neglect, which is taking care of ourselves, our health, our energy, our mindset, our happiness. And we just grind so hard until pretty soon we hate what we do. So I'm really hoping, Chris, this year they really do look at it not as the year of the grind, but as the year of really everything you're talking about, owning their space as the wise advisor, being efficient, utilizing leverage, really moving into the future of real estate.
yeah, yeah. It doesn't mean it's not going to be hard work. I mean, call it work for a reason. But it doesn't have to be a grind. Right? It actually, when you have a great attitude and you're getting energy from the people you're around and what you're doing and the progress you're making, that doesn't feel like a grind. That actually feels like progress. It feels like accomplishment. It's fulfilling. Um, this point, educating your database. What are you doing to differentiate yourself from the other agents that are talking to the same consumers you're talking to? You know, it's being the economist, the local economist, the agent of choice because you can add something that the consumer doesn't know or can't easily find online. Um, we leverage Area Pro, right, to be able to have the stats, to be able to be able to talk to a buyer. Now, what happens when you go to a doctor or a CPA or an attorney who through the conversation you're confident they know what they're talking about. Like when you're confident, then you're going to listen to them. And then when the doctor says this is what you need to do if you don't want your knee to hurt anymore, or this is the precautions you need to take with this legal situation if you don't want to end up in hot water. Um, but if they don't communicate that way, if you aren't confident in them, what do? You get a second opinion. You go see someone else. You don't do business with them. So we want to be that agent that instills confidence in the buyers and the sellers, through the conversations we can have and through the knowledge and the data that we can share with them that helps them understand that we know what we're doing and we know what we're talking about.
So I typed in the Area Pro. You guys can look that up. It's easy. You could get a demo. I love it, and I'll tell you why I love it. It is a lot of work on your own to put together market data and compile it, and how do I explain it? Area Pro, very affordable technology. You can put in the area, it will give you a beautiful report with all the data that you need. And then you can ask its, AI functionality, you can ask it to write me a script of how do I explain this to a seller? Or how do I explain it to a buyer? Or can you turn it into an email message? Can you turn it into a blog? It's like push of a button and it will make you absolutely sound like an expert. And one other thing, Chris, I had a great coach that worked with me for many years. He used to be the CEO of realtor.com, very wise man. And he said to me once, he said, if you look at the websites of most real estate agents and their marketing material, it's all about, service, and they love their clients and service. And he said, that's all great. However, that should be a given. He said, if you were going to hire a high level attorney, you would see on their website experience, expertise, and results. So think about it, guys. Are you that wise advisor? Do you know your market? Are you ready? If you walk into a social situation and they say, how's the market? Are you ready to talk about something powerful that would make you stand out? With a tool like Area Pro, super easy, right? I just think of all the time I spent trying to be an expert and all the study and in the computer, and now it's just really push of a button.
It really is. And again, we talk about being more efficient and more effective. These are the tools that help you do that. Um, playing offense. We talked about the surge in the market changes, everything else. We should operate every day like we're not going to get any help from the market. We should plan every day like there aren't going to be tailwinds. Maybe if there's going to be headwinds, who knows? But we don't want to be rising and falling with the market. We want to be rising because of the activities that we're doing, the actions we're taking, the efficiencies we're creating, the effectiveness that we're building through our skills, so that we aren't negatively impacted by anything that does or doesn't happen in the market. So let's talk about action plans, things we need to do. Create a 90-day readiness sprint. Like, hey, here's the things that, yes, I'm going to do my normal activities today. They're in my schedule. I'm going to do them. But I'm also going to focus on these things for the next 90 days, right? I'm going to either create new checklists or systems or processes, or I'm going to look at the ones I have that I've been using for maybe 8, 10, 12 years. Are they still as good as they should be? Should they be updated? Should they be changed? What am I doing to not just, I know I should add people. Sorry, I just hit my earbud and it went off. I should, be adding people to my team. But do I have a plan for doing that? I know I should be talking to people, but what's my plan to double the amount of people I talk to? Those are the things that we talk about in like a readiness sprint. What am I going to do to educate my clients? What am I going to do to be an asset to them? Right? Not just one of the agents that has them in their database that's sending them stuff, right? Because we know this, that if someone's in our database, they're in someone else's database too, and they're sending them stuff too. But what are we doing that's actually providing value, right? If I'm a buyer, getting listings isn't providing me value. I get those all day long, right? I get them from every portal I've been on, and MLS, any agent that put me on a search in an MLS. That's not value, but saying, hey, Chris, when we spoke several months ago at that open house, you said that you were going to be doing this or you were looking for that. I just want to let you know that there's 2 properties that are going to be coming on the market. And if you're interested in learning about them before they do so, let me know. I'd be happy to share with you. Like that's a value. Like if I'm a buyer, telling me of something that's coming or something that I didn't know or something that might impact me. Same with the seller. Hey, just want to let you know that there's a couple of homes in your neighborhood that are going to hit the market And I just wanted you to be aware of them. Oh, yeah, I'm going to be curious. I'm going to want to know. I'm going to engage with that type of outreach. Um, expand our lead sources by 25%, right? Like whatever we're doing, we say, okay, we're going to add 25% more to that, right? If we're focused on, as an individual agent, if you're focused on your sphere, open houses, and expireds, okay, what other lead source you're going to add, or other two lead sources you're going to add, so that you're what you're have more activities to do, more things that more revenue generating activities you can do that will bring you more business. All right. Well, this is always a fun topic. You have to have a P&L before you can review it. So, now, if you're a team, the chances are you do. And if you're an individual agent, you should. Right? I've had this conversation multiple times in the last couple of weeks, especially about individual agents. Even if you're on a team, you should know if you have any expenses, what those expenses are. It might be the gas that you use in your car. It might be your cell phone. And then looking at your revenue, and are you making more revenue than your expenses? And looking at, okay, what do I need to do? I want to have more money in the bank than I have now. What do I need to do? For teams, reevaluating always, what are we spending our money on? And are we getting a good return on that money that we're spending? Um, you know, this is much easier for teams than it is for an individual agent. Individual agent, you need to find an accountability partner, or hire a coach, or have a partner that's going to do this with you. But for teams, making sure that you're, whether it's your morning power ups or your weekly one-on-ones, that you are having those conversations, and not just, how you doing and what's happening, but hey, you got 5 leads this week. Where are you at on them? What do you need? How can we help you moving forward? What's the follow-up? What's the next step? What challenges? How do you think you did in the meeting, in the appointment you had with them? What could you have done better? What can we help you do better? Like, really digging in. All right. We've covered a lot. We've gone fast. I know there's other topics and things we want to chat about.
We did. That was good. But I guess if I'm circling back, I'm thinking of, when you were talking about the multiple lead gen sources, I always recommend to our clients that they have at least 5, maybe even 6. Now, that could be your past clients in Sphere, it could be your open house, it could be your expireds, maybe you're a networker, maybe you work absentee owners. And at Forward Coaching, we like to look at your personal strengths and your personality and say, okay, we've got the foundational ones that we all need to do, right? The database. Beyond that, though, what are the activities that are your best fit? Because once you decide this is going to be a lead gen lever for me, Chris, to your point of an action plan, I'll often hear people say, well, my action plan is I'm going to call my sphere more. And my thought is, well, that's a good idea, but that is not an action plan. An action plan would be, well, at 9 a.m., Monday through Friday, I'm going to dial 10 people in my database, and I have a goal to speak to 2. And my theme for this quarter calls is X. See, it has to be kind of the who, what, where, when, why, and how. If I can't hold you accountable to it, then it's not clear enough, right? And, sometimes, Chris, you and I have been coaches for years, so we've heard this often. Well, I know what I need to do. I just need to do it. And maybe you know what you need to do. But sometimes we can't always see the forest for the trees because we're so enmeshed in our own way. And let's face it, guys, none of us are born disciplined. Discipline is difficult. And when you think about momentum, if you do all the things Chris talked about and build some great momentum in the first quarter, we want to keep that going. Because once you're in action, it's easier to stay in action. And I think of momentum, Chris, simply as identifying what do I need to do? When do I need to do it? And now I just need to do it every day, right? It's really not brain surgery.
No, it's not. And it's also important to understand momentum works in both ways, in both directions. So the more that you're not in action, the harder it is to get in action, and the more you fall behind. So, momentum is really powerful, but you want to use it to your advantage, not to create more friction for the things you're trying to accomplish.
So I guess we'd sum it up, guys, by saying know what you want, right? You got to have those goals, and motivation is fleeting. So really, I think it's more about identifying your purpose. Why? Why do I want to accomplish this goal? How will it change my life? How will it change my family's life? Because we all have those days we would much rather not do it. As Chris said, that's why it's called work, not vacation. But when you have that purpose, that's what drives you. Then I think, beyond that, it's identifying the game plan. And then when Chris talked about financials, I thought of things like make sure you have a good CPA. We want you to keep as much of your money as you legally can, and know what it costs you to run your life and business each month, because then you know when you're winning and what are you going to do with that extra money. And, I love the thought, Chris, of just do 25% more. So think of how many outbound conversations do you usually have a day? Do 25% more. How many groups or opportunities or meetings do you get in front of in a month? Do 25% more. How many doors do you knock before open house? Do 25% more, right? I think that's an easy formula that everyone could apply. So Chris, thank you so much for joining me today. We really appreciate it. And guys, I just, to make this all worthwhile, just go do something, right? Commit to taking one action. So if you want to type in the chat box what your action is, please do. We'll be your accountability partners. If you need to talk to me, Van has popped the link in the chat box so you can reach out to me directly. So Chris, any last thoughts?
Hopefully you wrote down or thought of one thing during this conversation. And if you did, then go implement that one thing.
Yeah.
Don't try to do it all. Just make progress every day. That builds confidence, that builds momentum, and it's just one day after another. So thanks for all being here. Thanks for letting me be a part of this.
All right, we'll see you all soon. Have a good day. Bye-bye, Chris.